back to the Listen and Grow podcast. Today's episode is a little bit longer than usual because there is so much news happening in the LGBTQ plus community that I want to make sure that you know about. Across city councils, courtrooms, classrooms, Broadway stages, Olympic arenas, and international borders, LGBTQ lives are being debated, defended, celebrated, and in some cases deliberately erased. Some of today's stories are hopeful, some are infuriating, and others sit uncomfortably in between. But taken together, they tell us something important. Progress is real, and so is the backlash. So let's get into it. Our first story is representation and power at a local level. Representation matters. That's how Ashley Shade of North Adams, Massachusetts described a historic moment. The first ever majority female council and the election of the council's first transgender president. Shade was clear. Identity alone isn't a qualification for office, but lived experience brings perspective and changes decision-making. At a time when transgender people are often legislated about rather than legislated with, this shift represents more than symbolism. It shows what governance can look like when leadership reflects the people it serves. Our next story is LGBTQ plus people and homelessness in Canada. LGBTQ plus people make up roughly 4% of Canada's population, and yet they represent 13% of those experience homelessness. Family rejection, employment discrimination, and lack of affirming housing options continue to push queer and trans people, especially youth, into housing instability. This isn't an accident. It's the result of systems that fail LGBTQ plus people long before they lose a roof over their heads. Our next story is Luke Evans' Broadway and cultural reset. Luke Evans is officially stepping into fishnets. The Welsh actor will make his Broadway debut as Dr. Frank-N-Furter in the new revival of the Rocky Horror Show, produced by the Roundabout Theatre Company and directed by Tony Award winner Sam Pickleton. The show opens at Studio 54, with previews beginning March 26, 2026. And at the moment, when conservative forces are trying to police gender expression, this casting feels intentional. Frank-N-Furter has always challenged norms, and bringing the character back now feels like a reminder that art doesn't ask permission. Love that. Our next story is AI hallucinations and anti-trans legal arguments. A Pennsylvania judge rejected legal filings opposing transgender inclusive school policies after discovering factual errors likely caused by artificial intelligence hallucinations. Judge Matthew Wolf questioned whether attorneys improperly relied on AI tools without verifying accuracy, a serious issue in the case targeting trans students. The ruling sends a clear message. Bad faith arguments, whether human or machine generated, will not be accepted in court. Our next story is JFK Jr. is back in the news where he cuts pediatric funding after criticism. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. cut millions in funding to the American Academy of Pediatrics following the group's criticism of changes to federal vaccine policy. Officials cited the organization's use of inclusive language and reference to racial disparities, but critics argue the timing suggests retaliation. When medical expertise is punished for dissent, public health, especially children's health, pay the price. Next, Marlon Wayans on supporting his trans son. Marlon Wayans continues to model what supportive parenting actually looks like. Speaking on the podcast We in Miami, Wayans reaffirmed the unconditional love for his trans son and praised other parents, including Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union, for publicly standing by their children. At a time when trans youth are under constant political attack, parental support is more than personal, it's protective. Our next story is allegations of anti-trans shift at the New York Times. Billie Jean Sweeney, a trans former editor at the New York Times, alleges that the paper's anti-trans editorial shift began in 2022 following leadership changes. According to Sweeney, the paper published a series of stories that questioned gender-inclusive language, medical consensus, and trans identity itself, lending legitimacy to political attacks. When powerful media outlets frame trans existence as controversial, the consequences ripple far beyond the page. Our next story is a historic inauguration narrated by a trans voice. New York City marked history as Mayor Mandami was sworn in as the youngest and first Muslim mayor. The ceremony was narrated by the beloved trans subway announcer and my friend and guest that was on my show, Bernie Wagenblast, a voice New Yorkers have trusted for decades. Representation just isn't about who holds office, it's also whose voices are trusted to tell the story. I love Bernie, and I'm so happy she was the one on stage doing this narration for the new mayor of New York. Love her. Next, Massachusetts court allows opt-out from LGBTQ book bans. A Massachusetts father won a court injunction allowing kindergarten-age children to avoid books featuring LGBTQ plus characters, citing religious objections. The ruling affirmed parental opt-out rights, but critics warn it sets a precedent where visibility itself becomes optional, even when materials simply depict LGBTQ plus families. And our next story is about Texas again. A Texas City Council's Pride after protections rolled back. Arlington Pride has officially canceled its June 26th parade after the council voted against reinstating LGBTQ plus protections. Organizers said they could not guarantee safety without anti-discrimination safeguards. The parade drew 15,000 attendees last year. Its cancellation underscores a painful truth. Pride without protection is not celebration, it's risk. And next, LGBTQ plus streaming picks starting in January of this year. January has a strong slate of LGBTQ plus content across platforms, and I'm going to tell you about a few of them. The Boyfriend Season 2 is out on Netflix, or coming out on Netflix in January. Industry Season 4, HBO Max. I can't wait for that one. I love that show. The Beauty is on Hulu and Disney Plus. Night Manager Season 2, great show, is coming out on Prime Video. School Spirit Season 3 is Paramount Plus. The Traitors is coming in with its 4th season on Peacock. And Terry Joe, who we all know from TikTok, Missionary in Miami, is coming out on Tubi. Visibility on screen continues to matter, especially when real-world protections feel fragile. Next, out athletes in Olympic history. 3 openly LGBTQ plus players will compete on the U.S. women's Olympic hockey team led by Captain Hillary Knight, one of the greatest players in the sport's history, will skate in her final Olympics fully out and supported by her partner, fellow Olympian Brittany Bowe. Representation in sports isn't symbolic, it's structural, and it changes who feels they belong. And our next story is LGBTQ plus rights in Asia. Progress is under pressure. At the close of 2025, LGBTQ rights across Asia reflected uneven progress and growing repression. In Japan, High Court split on same-sex marriage, pushing the issue to the Supreme Court. Limited legal protections expanded, but major rights like pensions remain excluded. A conservative prime minister has stalled legislative change. In China, authorities removed gay apps, censored queer media, and arrested writers. In Hong Kong, lawmakers rejected a civil partnership bill, though courts ruled in favor of trans bathroom access. In Taiwan, it expanded reproductive access for same-sex couples and reviewed gender recognition laws, but withdrew from hosting World Pride. South Korea stalled on partnerships but agreed to the court same-sex couples in the census. Thailand implemented same-sex marriage, while Indonesia and Malaysia and Vietnam cracked down on LGBTQ plus expressions. And in India, courts expanded protections despite federal opposition. And then Kazakhstan enacted LGBT propaganda laws, very similar to what Russia has done. And in Afghanistan, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants against Taliban leaders for crimes against LGBTQ plus people. So across Asia, progress exists, but it remains fragile, court-driven, and constantly under threat. And that's all of today's news and stories today. And one thing is clear, visibility alone isn't safety. Representation alone isn't protection. Rights are secured or lost in courts, council, classrooms, and quiet policy decisions most people never see. That's why I bring you the headlines, give you the details here so you don't miss what's really at stake. Thanks for listening to Listen Up Girl. If you think this podcast or this episode will resonate with someone, please be sure to share it with someone. Stay informed, stay loud, and take care of each other. I'll be back later this week with more LGBTQ plus news. Thanks for listening.